We're here to share with you inspiring stories that bring to life all the little and big ways that people bring more love, joy, laughter, and humanness to everyday life. Our focus is the hunt for those little moments that refuel the human soul and reminds us what life is really all about. I invite you to sit back, enjoy the moments, enjoy the stories, the adventures, and the journeys. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of What the World Needs More of. My name is Jarek Robbins. I am your host for this journey of the soul. Today we are having a very special guest. His name is Denis. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're going to dive into the question of the show, which is, what do you believe the world needs more of?
Awesome. Well, first, I think that what the world needs more of is, one, understanding identity. And I believe that, in my generation, especially, that we have an identity crisis. So we say one thing, we do the other. We commit to goals but never finish them. And we do the most to impress the people who like us the least. And the thing about identity is not, your identity is not defined by the things that you do. If you try to define your identity by what you do, you will always try to do more. I see many people that, they put their identity based on, their job, or, what they're studying in school, or what they want to study in school. And what they do is they chase these things, but then they soon realize that there's no fulfillment in that. And then also your identity is not defined by what other people say about you. And especially in this generation, I think people's identity is based off of everything someone says about them. That's why people build their social media profiles in such a way for people to just go on and like their posts, but really to, in a sense, show them that they value them. So people search for meaning in that, and what they'll also find is that you won't find any fulfillment in that. And then your identity is also not defined by the things that you possess. Another thing, I keep going back to the social media thing, but another thing is that, people think that, if I just get this, or if I just earn this, or I go buy this, then, I'll be happy, I'll be fulfilled. But that's also not true. I believe that, identity comes from what you believe. And, what you believe is, the way you're going to live your life, and, the way you're going to, carry out those actions in your life. So I believe that, this world can be changed through community. That when people come together, sit down and build a relationship with one another, they get to know more about each other. We get to learn about each other, and actually use their differences to make a difference. So that's the first thing I think this world needs more of. The second thing is really just compassion for other people. Placing yourself in someone's shoes and say, hey, what is this person going through? One thing that, I always tell people when I'm speaking or something, I always say that, in life you're going to go through something, and if you haven't gone through something, you will go through something, and that, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but it will happen. And I believe that, all of us, we walk around like everything is okay and everything is fine, but, it just isn't. So understanding that, hey, if someone is lashing out at you, maybe, there might be something that's going on in their life that's causing them to do that. Or, someone's honking at you in traffic, or if, the person at McDonald's line is being rude to you, whatever that may be, just know that there's a bigger story and there's a bigger picture to that. So just having, compassion for those people, and just understanding that, hey, you might not see the full picture, but there's something going on there. And the way you can change that story and you can change that narrative is by responding different, by treating people different, by being kind even when it's hard. So that's the two things that I think this world needs more of. Understanding identity, who you are, because I often say that you can't change the world around you until you deal with the things inside of you. So it's either you go change the world or the world will change you. And then two, just having compassion for other people and really understanding that, hey, something is going on in everybody's life, and let's just try to be the best to one another.
So powerful and so true. Now here's a question. Speaking of identity, what do you consider to be your wow factor? What makes you uniquely you, and what are some of the moments that help shape it?
I think my wow factor is really my outlook on things. You hear this thing of, life can be like playing a game of cards. It's not about the cards that you have been dealt, but it's about what you do with those cards. So you can play a game of cards and have a bad hand and still win, and in the same way, you can have a great hand and still lose, because it's not about the cards you've been dealt, it's about what you do with them. So in my life, I couldn't control the certain circumstances that I was born into, or my family issues, or certain problems in my life, but I can control how I view them. I say it like this: you can't control your outcome, but you can control your outlook. And I think that's my wow factor, because in anything I get myself into, or any situation I'm in, I know that like, this will work out for my good and everything will be okay at the end. So that's how I can deal with failure, or I can deal with rejection. And so in everything I do, I always go in with this positive attitude, almost with the sense that, hey, whatever I do, I can't lose, because if in the end, if it's not my certain outcome, I know that I will learn something from that experience. So I would say that's my wow factor.
And was it something that you were born with? Did you build it like a muscle over time? How did it show up?
I think for me, it's something I was born with. Like, ever since I was, ever since I was young, it was just something that was just tattooed in my brain, if you would say. Because I was that kid that was bullied, and I was that kid who was isolated. Because my story starts off that I'm not originally from this country. I migrated here from Haiti at the age of 6, and even while I was being bullied, and even while I was isolated, I always had this positive outlook that just carried me throughout life. And that positive outlook turned into resilience. In our program, what we teach students is transformative resiliency. So using your adversity and the things that happen to you to catapult you to where you want and need to be in life.
I love that. I'm a huge fan of resiliency. I've had the privilege of training with people just getting started in life, all the way to the special operations teams for the Air Force and different units. And resiliency seems to be the consistent thing that the people who make it, the people who thrive, not just survive, not just barely pull through, but the ones who actually thrive in so many different environments. Yep. It always comes back to that resiliency factor. It's so powerful and so useful that y'all are bringing that into the schools and teaching that at an early stage to get people into that motion, because it makes a huge difference over time.
Crazy difference.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question. What's a moment that made you feel incredibly humble?
I think really just my whole life, I think it's really my whole life. I had many people throughout my life that basically took me in. I had many mentors in my life that even though my parents were always at work, so I was never able to do things like sit down and have a meal with them or build a relationship with them. I had many mentors in my life that would take me and bring me into their own home, and show me what a real family looks like, and what bonding looks like, and what creating a relationship looks like. And what it made me very humble, because they took me in, and that's not something they had to do, or it's not like a service, but it's just something they wanted to do. So the same love that they show me, now I want to show that same love to others.
So beautiful to be able to pay that forward.
Yeah, and that has made all the difference in my life.
That's awesome, man. Here's a question. What's an awe-inspiring moment over the years? Something that just left your jaw on the ground in a moment of awe.
So Yeah, so and a little bit backstory. So I'm the founder of We Dine Together, and We Dine Together is this movement that is traveling all across the country and actually even in places like Hong Kong. And I started it in my high school with this idea that relationships were built over the table and no one should eat alone. So what we would do is we'd bring students to come together, sit down, have a meal with one another, do different interactive activities so they can build a relationship with one another. And so we would meet once a week in a classroom, and on the days where we weren't doing that, we would go back out into the courtyard. So and just approach people and just either give them a compliment or just ask if we can sit with them. So there was one day where I went to I approached someone to sit with them, and I asked him if I can sit with him, and he immediately said no, and I'm like, you sure? He's like, I don't know. And then but I sat down anyway. So the whole time I'm trying to have conversation with him, and he's just not budging, and he's just not feeling it. But in in a moment where many people would turn away, I decided to stay there. And not only that, I decided to go back. And so by Friday of that week, he asked me, Dennis, why are you sitting with me? And I'm like, dude, we're friends. And so this dude just starts crying, and he starts crying, and I have no idea what he's crying. And mind you, we're in the cafeteria, and we're in the courtyard, and this school is 3,400 students, and we all eat lunch at the same time. And he starts crying, so I'm like, I'm feeling awkward. I'm like, okay, well, like, what's up with this dude? And then he tells me that, in 3 years of being in that school, I was the first person to ever sit with him.
Hmm.
And then not only that, but then 2 days later, next week, right? By Tuesday, he brought two other students into the club that he went back out into the courtyard to reach out to. And for me, at that moment, I noticed that he realized that he was no longer a victim. He was no longer the bullied kid, but he really had an opportunity to make an impact in the lives of another person. And I, that moment, like when I told you, I just broke down, and that's still, one of the main stories that motivates me today. And many people would have just turned around, but by me just sitting down and really having genuine conversation with him, he impacted two other people's lives. And I think that's something that we can all do. Just simply just sit down with someone, and that's like the gas that keeps my fire going till this day.
Hmm. Paying that love forward, paying that connection forward, and
Exactly.
creating a transformative experience. A mentor, someone I read their book one time and look up to in his industry, he says you can create a transactional experience, you can create a relational experience, or you can create a
Mm.
transformational experience.
Oh,
And
that's
what
good.
what happened is when you sat down and built a relationship, it wasn't a transaction. It wasn't, hey, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. It was a relationship. Tell me about yourself. Let's connect. Let's get connected and really care about each other. But because you took time to have that relational experience with him, it transformed and became a transformational experience that allowed him, like you said, to go from a victim to a victor, someone who felt like he was out to someone now who could go help others. And it's amazing how that happens with something seemingly so simple. Sitting down and talking to someone seems simple, but it takes a lot of
Yeah.
guts, takes a lot of courage,
Oh,
takes a lot of heart, takes a lot to
and
do it. People don't realize it.
exactly. And that's what I love about my job, because I serve as director of Be Strong, and Be Strong is a national nonprofit focused on bullying prevention. We actually do the world's largest bullying prevention events,
Hmm.
and what and but now we dine together as a key initiative. But now we have students all across the country doing this, and now we're getting stories like that every single day of lives being changed just because one person decided to go up to someone, sit down, and have genuine conversation.
Hmm.
And then these students are beginning to realize that, they're not a victim, and they're not bullied or they're not the bully, but they're just an individual that has, limitless capability to create change in the lives of other people.
Hmm.
uh, Stories like this every single day, and it makes me so happy, just to be doing what I'm doing. because
That's
I just
awesome.
get to with young leaders, and it's crazy inspiring.
Good work, man. It is inspiring. Now, this is going to be an interesting twist. With all this goodness going on, what's your greatest fear?
What is my greatest fear? That's a hard one. That's a hard one. That is a very hard one. Let me think about that. I think for me, um, growing up, my greatest fear um, was uncertainty.
Mm.
Not knowing how things are going to turn out. Um, and but my greatest fear is actually, just to be completely honest, it's thinking about all of the relationships that I built at such a young age, because I am only 20. You
Hmm.
know, one day, because I have built all these relationships, um, as people pass away, it's also like I think of it as relationships passing away in my heart, but in my mind, I know these are relationships that, in a sense, will last forever. So I think that's my biggest fear of having built all these relationships, and as I get older and move through this journey of life, just saying goodbye, just saying goodbye to people, and so that's that's my biggest fear.
Hmm.
Saying goodbye, that's my biggest fear.
Hmm. I can see why you're so good at building relationships. Don't ever want to have to say goodbye to them, which is,
Exactly.
I can feel that. Okay. What are you most excited about for your future?
Um, well, I'm just meaningful impact.
Mm.
That's the space I'm in, and that's where I devote my time, is just meaningful impact. Um, I really want to see these rates of bullying and suicide and depression just decrease, and that's the space I want to be in. I know that all these students need is just the right approach. For example, even in our schools, we have this top-down approach, this educator approach. But what we're taking on is this student-led approach, teaching students that hey, you can have an impact. Because we often say things like, hey, the young people need a voice, but oftentimes we don't give them the mic. So at my conferences, what I do is I actually just hop off stage, and I just ask people, and I ask the students, what do you want to see? Or what do you think your purpose is? And every time they talk about purpose, they have this firm understanding that purpose is not for them, purpose is for someone else, and that they were created to help someone else out. And so every time I hear these things, it encourages me. So the thing I'm hopeful about the future is that I think we're going to see meaningful change through this generation, because students are saying, hey, I'm gonna create an impact. I'm no longer gonna live, by the opinions of other people or what my parents tell me to do, but I'm gonna be in the space of impact, whether I'm a teacher, a doctor, a janitor, whatever space I'm in. And that's what I'm happy about, just seeing the change that unfolds through this generation. I really believe it's gonna be this generation that changes the world.
Mm. I love it. Now we're going to switch gears to the second portion of our show. We call this nuts and bolts. It's our tangible, tactical, practical, applicable action stuff we can leave people with so they can immediately apply it in their life or business or world or school. And so the first question here is, what do you focus the majority of your thoughts and time and life on each day as of right now?
For me, it's building genuine relationships.
Hmm.
Um, because I believe that relationships are really the only things that can last. You know, we oftentimes, spend most of our time building a career, or, just trying to build success or trying to achieve success. And in doing that, sometimes we forget about the most important things in our life is relationships, because you're not always going to have that job. You're not always going to have that money in your bank account, but I guarantee what you're always going to have is meaningful relationships in your life. And no matter what's going on in your life, that's the thing that you need to fall back on. So most of my time is spent on meaningful relationships. So how do you do this? It can just be as simple as, going back to the table, sitting down, sharing a meal with someone, and not just having superficial conversation, but having genuine conversation. Saying, hey, what's going on with you? How's your week going? You know, What do you need help with? What are you struggling with? Having these meaningful conversations, and I believe that change happens in these spaces and in these environments where students, or actually anybody, students, leaders, teachers, professors, whoever, pastors, whoever you may be, just sitting down and having meaningful relationships, because talking about things that will create meaningful relationships, because I think that's what makes it, that's what makes the difference. So that's where I'm focused my time on, even when I'm busy or when I'm traveling. And that can be something as simple as, sending 10 people a text a day, just telling them, hey, I appreciate you, I hope everything is going well. It's all about the little things that can add to big results.
Hmm. So true. Now, here's a question. In building meaningful relationships, and like you said, it doesn't matter if you're in school, it doesn't matter if you're in business, and I'll tell you, as much as it was a struggle in school, when you own a business and you're an entrepreneur and you're busy going from meeting to meeting and call to call, it's just as hard. And I'll tell you, it's just as impactful that if you go to wherever you go get lunch and you see someone sitting alone, go say hi, sit down with them, ask them about their life. The same principles apply. And I'll just, Dennis, I'll tell you from experience, it gets almost a little bit harder as you go through different stages of life, because in school, there's lots of populations of people together in one location doing similar things. As you spread out, and all of a sudden, I have moms tell me this all the time, it's very lonely as a mom. Because even though moms say we should all get together and we should totally take care of each other, they're busy running after their little one, trying to get them dressed and trying to feed them and trying to take care of them and try to do their own hair and try to pay their bills and try to do everything else. And when they're doing all this stuff, it's hard to get together. It's hard to stay connected, they say. And so this concept plays into everywhere in life. I mean, if you want to do something that'll warm your heart, go to a hospital where someone doesn't have any family left, and go sit down with them and bring them lunch and chat with them and talk with them and ask them these questions. It'll warm your heart and it'll bring, light to their world. So what you're doing applies so deeply in where you're doing it, and it applies so much everywhere in the world. I've seen it. I've had the ability to travel to places all over the globe. It's a blessing to do so. But watching people be so lonely. I wrote a post about this the other day. I remember a friend of mine telling me she felt so lonely. And I was like, lonely? You live in a city with 13 million people. How in the heck do you feel lonely when you're literally surrounded by 13 million people? I'm like, that sounds like a talent to me. I would feel overwhelmed. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
And all it was she was missing the connection that you're talking about here. She was missing going out and sitting down with someone and saying hello and asking them now how their day is and building a genuine relationship, not a transaction. And it can become transformational, but just a true relationship, just caring about another human and knowing they care about you and knowing that you're building that connection is so powerful. Now, in building a relationship, what would you say a key to your success is, or a key to someone's success if they wanted to go out and build a relationship with someone?
So key to a person's success. I think it goes back to just one understanding that you know there are times where you're not going to be able to connect. It's not always easy connecting with everyone, and it's not always easy building relationships. And I think it's something that's hard, and it's a type of transformation that you can't count on your fingers, or it's not qualitative and it's not quantitative, really, in my opinion. So I think it's really about being persistent and being intentional about these things. Um, like, for example, even in our clubs, we teach students that, hey, it's not random acts of kindness, it's acts of kindness, because things like building relationships and transforming people's lives, you have to be very intentional every single time you do it. And for the person listening and saying, okay, why do I want to do this? Like, why? Yeah, we're talking about the how and the what, but why? And this is what I tell students at my conferences. I say, hey, life can sometimes be like that scary movie. And if you're not weird, you would not like to watch a scary movie by yourself. You need those people around you. So for people listening, as you go out and you build those relationships, just know that you have to be intentional. and that it's not always going to work out. But like my wow factor, it's about your outlook. Did this not work out, or did you learn something new about the person that you tried connecting with?
Hmm.
So it's just persistence. I believe persistence.
Persistence has
Knowing that it's not
power.
going to work out, but it's exactly. That knowing it's, hey, it's not always going to work out. Things are not always going to go your way, but that's okay.
Keep nudging forward, stay focused, and believe. I like it.
Mm.
Now, here's the question, our final question. What's one actionable tip we can leave with other people listening right now that they can go use to experience the success in building these kind of relationships, these kind of connections in their life?
One actionable tip. I think it's, you know, actually, I just want to do a challenge real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I challenge you, or you know, just anybody listening, right? Just to wherever you're at, go approach someone, sit down, and ask them about their life. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them their interests. And I believe that, in our society, people don't do this anymore, and people are very scared. So this action step is, stepping out of your comfort zone. That's the action step. Stepping out of your comfort zone, because life begins at the end of your comfort zone. So just get up, get out, go sit with someone. Go sit with someone. Instead of, going through the drive-through, go inside. See if there's anyone there sitting by themselves. Grab your meal and offer to sit with them. If they say no, that's okay. But just know that you're being intentional, you're being persistent, and that's how change happens.
I love it. I love it. It actually happened to my friend the other day. She went to go get lunch somewhere by herself. She grabbed her lunch. She turned around. There were no tables open, and there was a guy sitting by himself. And she looked around and was like, okay, that's the only chair open. She walked up and she was just asked, can I sit with you? I need to eat my lunch and I'd like to sit down. And he was like, sure. And they ended up having a 4.5 hour conversation and became friends.
Yep.
And it started as the only seat available, but ended as, hey, they're really cool and they like each other. It's kind of neat.
Exactly. And I think when we step up and we step out, we'll be surprised by the relationships that we can form and the people that we can meet.
It's so very true. So here's a question. If people like what they're hearing here and they say, wow, how do I get involved? Either I'm in school, my kids are in school, my friends are in school, they want to get involved with this, or even they're out of school, but they're like, hey, I like what you're up to. Where can they find more?
So what I would say is, if it's a parent or teacher or a civic official or a person with a child or knows a child, I would recommend visiting bestrong.global and nominating a student rep. And what we do with the student rep is we work with the student every single month in three key areas: advocacy, awareness, and acts of kindness. So advocacy. So now we have students writing letters to different civic officials telling them about the work that they're doing in their school, not only telling them about the work that they're doing, but inviting these different civic officials to come to the school and dine with them. So now what we're doing is we're putting students in the power seat. And then so the acts of kindness portion is now we're challenging them to do a different acts of kindness in their school every single month. And it can be something as simple as opening the door for 10 strangers and just smiling at them. Or something as, all right, this month we challenge you to go to, your first responders and, bake them cookies or bring them a gift, and just telling them you appreciate them. And the awareness portion, they just create a short video every month to show us what they're doing in their school and how they're creating change in their community. And we believe by empowering these students, this is how the issue of, bullying, suicide, all mental health, I believe that this is the solution, because students are becoming the champions of this change. And just visit bestrong.global and find out more information. And not only that, we have our app, with that teaches people life-saving resiliency skills. So maybe you're not a student, but maybe you're dealing with mental health and certain things like that, we have all of those resources free to the school, free to the parent, free to the person that may be going through those difficulties. It's all on there for you. And then if you'd just like to connect with me, my handle is just Denis_Estimon.
Which is Estimon. So it's DENIS_ESTIMON. Well, Denis, thank you, sir, for joining us. Thank you for doing such good things in the world. I appreciate it. I applaud you. And I'm excited for everyone to tune in and listen to this.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for sharing so much. Now, for everyone who's tuning in, we believe that sharing is caring. We like caring people around here. So if you know someone who needs to hear this message, if someone who is a student who needs to go to bestrong.global and learn more and get involved, someone who's a parent, a teacher, a civic official, please share this with them. Like we said, we like sharing and we like caring people, so please share and make sure they hear this message. And I look forward to seeing you all next episode.